listening to Speaking with One Voice with Rodney Payne. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, topics you'd like discussed on the show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. That's rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. You can also search for us on Acast, Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Just look for Speaking with One Voice. Now, here's your host, Rodney Payne.
Hello and welcome to Speaking with One Voice. I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. We are back with you again here on this podcast to add value to you and your leadership team. Thank you for liking our podcast, watching and rating, subscribing, and sharing. And listen, I want to hear from you. DM me, message me. I want to hear what topics do you want to hear? What feedback do you like? Give us some feedback. Matter of fact, check out our YouTube channel at Rodney R. Payne and comment on the actual podcast video itself. I want to hear from you. We are right now in the midst of a podcast series called Focus, 5 Keys to Keeping Your Leadership on Target. 5 keys to keeping your leadership on target. We started a couple weeks back, and we were talking about frustration, the hidden fuel for transformative leadership. We talked about the ownership being the secret ingredient to empowered leadership. And today, I want to talk about a very, very, very dear subject to me. It's called critical thinking, the leadership superpower you can't afford to ignore. Critical thinking, the leadership superpower that you can't afford to ignore. I cannot overemphasize the importance and significance of critical thinking. So critical thinking is a component that every successful leader has to master. It truly becomes something that will differentiate you in your leadership journey. It takes good teams from good to great. It takes you from average to an exceptional. It will transform everything about your leadership when you master the skill of creative thinking. So when you think about what does it entail? Well, creative thinking takes data, it takes situations, it takes situational awareness, it takes education, it takes understanding, it takes comprehension, it takes patience. I could go on and on. There are so many things that come into play. Now, many of them may be intuitive to you. You may do them on autopilot, but what you really have to understand is that critical thinking, my friends, is very, very important. So to kick this thing off, I want to just start by taking critical thinking and then considering it against problem solving. So critical thinking versus problem solving. Critical thinking, by definition, is the ability to analyze facts and to form a judgment. But problem solving, on the other hand, is implementing solutions based on the analysis. So many of us do this backwards. We try to solve a problem and then go back and think about it. No. Critical thinking is what leads to an implemented solution to your problem. So when we look at this, the components, I want to break them down because I want you to really, really dig into this. So you cannot have critical thinking without the facts. Why do I say that? Well, facts are not opinions. Facts are not ideologies. Facts are things that can be proven and can be trusted. Facts are not feelings. Facts are not intuition. Facts are not perceptions. Facts are verifiable. Too many times in leadership, we act like we're AI. What does AI do if you're not careful? Artificial intelligence will hallucinate. We have far too much leadership hallucination when it comes to trying to solve problems, and you cannot solve problems without critical thinking, and you cannot think critically unless you have the facts. So you have to differentiate between what's a fact versus an emotion, what's a fact versus a preference, what's a fact versus a feeling, when someone says always or never, is it once in 20 times or once in a million times, but we made it more than it was. We have to have verifiable data in order to do this. This is so important. I want you to understand that. So when you think about critical thinking, think about it from that perspective. Now, when you think about problem solving, there are many problems that you have thought through. You've done the hard work of critical thinking, but you will not make the decision to implement the answer. That's the most important thing, is that if you're going to go through the process, then you have to have a process that you can believe in. And then when you get the data, you've assessed the facts, you have to be willing to do what it takes to solve the problem. In my book, Critical Decisions Made Easy, I talk about this process of executing the decision. It's hard to execute the decision when you're uncomfortable with the facts. If you're using things other than facts, if you only have one consideration. In that book, I'm going to give you 6 different considerations when looking at quantifying this decision that you're going to make. When you do that, now you'll have what you need that will help you to solve that problem based on the data that you have analyzed. Statistics, according to Pearson, organizations with strong critical thinkers literally report that there is a 36% higher productivity. When we think, we perform better, we produce, our outcomes are better, but we do it based on data, not based on instinct. Now, I will be the first to admit to you that some leaders have phenomenal instincts. But as I've unpacked the instincts of leaders and really dig deep into them, there's really a process behind the instinct. They can't quantify it, but they do it all the time. And so it's their ability to process information. I know a leader, one of my clients, that is just a superb thinker and thinks at a pace and a level much quicker and higher than most individuals. So it looks like it's instinctive. It looks like it was just, you said something, they made a decision, it was great, life was golden. The fact is, they process data at a very high speed. They process data at a very high level. Therefore, they draw conclusions extremely quickly, and they're usually right. We don't see the process because we can't process data at that rate, so it becomes difficult for us to understand. So when you have critical thinkers in your organization, you want to encourage that and bring them to the table. And that's why we have think tanks. We get in places where we just get together and we think about it. We want to get deep in our thought process, because when we do that, now we can grow at a different level. We can experience things. We can make better decisions, and we can solve problems. Remember, I like to say this. I say it not every week, but often. I tell you that Carly Fiorina says leaders solve problems. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So leaders who solve problems use their influence to engage others in problem solving. And the key component is going to be critical thinking. I must admit, this is really one of my pet peeves. It really challenges me, I'll say it that way, when I'm working with someone who does not or is not willing to think. And how do you know someone's not willing to think? Someone's not willing to think doesn't mean they don't have the capacity. It means they're not willing to. And a lot of times that has a lot to do with the leader who's leading them. If they come to you with questions and you always answer, you don't require thinking, so that's your relationship. I don't like that. I want you to anticipate what I'm going to ask you. I want you to anticipate what I'm going to need. I want you to think through this process, and is this logical? One of the things that I really don't like, I just struggle with, is don't bring me something for approval that you don't like yourself or that you know there's a problem with. Think through it. Does this meet our standard? Does this meet our brand? Is this who we are? Are the statements correct? Are they accurate? If you haven't taken the time to consider the facts about what you're looking at, and then you bring it to me and say, is it okay? And then I sign off and say it's okay. Now we get a subpar product because I trusted you. I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't do my job. You trusted me because you didn't want to do your job. Now we have a subpar product. You get that? That's the difference in critical thinking and problem solving. If I don't have data, if I don't have facts, I can't do it well. So now let's go a little bit deeper, and let's talk about techniques that will help us to enhance our critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is a muscle that can be developed. So what do we have to do? Well, first of all, if you're going to critically think at all in any environment, you have to engage in the process. You have to be a part of the process. And critical thinking is better when you have more people in the think tank. So a good way to get there is, how about we start doing role-playing scenarios or debate? Let's get in here and put some scenarios together. Let's play roles. Let's figure this thing out, and let's get in the tank and try and figure it out. That's exercising the muscle. What happens when you have a safe space for doing that is you're going to agitate and incite thinking from those in the room. And that's the goal. We want everybody in the organization thinking. We don't want everyone to just adopt immediately. We don't want them to adapt immediately. What we want you to do is we want you to debate to get the best. You can have a great idea. And when I think I have a great idea, I always ask someone who I value their opinion and I know that they will tell me the truth. I want them to test my process and say, I don't like that. That doesn't mean I'm going to change to what they say, but if I consider it, it gives me a broadened perspective and allows me to get the end result that I really want in the first place. That's what we want to do. Not only do we do this scenarios or structured debate, look at Google's Project Oxygen, for instance. They emphasize teaching critical thinking to improve the team performance. That was the whole point. The point of critical thinking is not to have debate or dialogue to no end, but it's to improve your performance. That's what thinking is all about, my friends. You are listening to Speaking with One Voice with your host, Coach Rodney Payne, here to add value to you and or your leadership team. We're talking about focus, 5 keys to keeping your leadership on target. And today we are working through this process we've been through ownership and we've been through some others, but today we are talking about critical thinking. I want to invite you to join me October 19th right here in Oklahoma City for Live to Lead. We are going to have great virtual speakers by way of John Maxwell, Dan Heath, Stephanie Chung, Catherine McLay, and Rory Vaden. I've got Raymond Kemp coming in. I'll be speaking for you. It's going to be a day that's not just about speaking, but it's about gaining practical, applicable insights from proven leadership principles that are going to help to grow you personally and to grow your team. You can register and get your tickets today, and today is the cheapest they're ever going to be. They're only going up from here. I want you to go to rodneyrpayne.com/live, the number 2, lead OKC 2026. Get your tickets today. Now, let's hop back into this critical thinking. We've talked about critical thinking versus problem solving. We've talked about techniques for enhancing our critical thinking skills because of that muscle that we can build. Now, how do we truly get to where we've talked about this, but how do we leverage critical thinking in the team dynamic? Because if you're not empowered to think, you won't feel that you have the authority to think. If you don't have the authority to think, we're going to lose our best ideas because they'll never be brought to the table. So let's do this. Let's understand, as a leader, step 1, I want you get out of your comfort zone. Do this. Make a fist, and now I want you to pry open your hand so that you can share. Okay? And now I want you to encourage critical thinking in your team members. I want it to be from the top down. You say, I need you to be a part of this thinking process. I want you to bring them in to brainstorming sessions. I want you to bring them into collaborative decision making. So recently in one of the organizations that I lead, I was trying to change a process that it was totally different than anything we'd ever done before. And so I wanted to make the decision, but in order to get buy-in in the organization, you have to first have buy-in from leadership. So instead of me sharing my conclusive thought with my team, I shared a seed idea for brainstorming. And then I brought them to the table and we began to brainstorm. As we began to brainstorm, we began to build a framework of what this looks like and how we would best serve. But through our brainstorming, we thought that we would get better input, better feedback, and a better product if we engage the entire organization. So what do? We did a live survey. You know the surveys, you can put them on the screen, click the QR code, say your answers. In real time, we asked the organization to share with us their thoughts. When they did that, That then gave us their top thoughts and ideas and what they'd like to see as a product offering. From that, we then created that particular content based on their request. And guess what happened? Well, we had more participation than we've ever had before because the organization was involved in this process. But it only happened because we had a brainstorming session at the senior level that we then expanded to the organizational level. See, you want to bring people in, not just in the brainstorming session, but also on the collaborative decision making. When you bring them in on the collaborative decision making, what happens is now you have that other word we learned about, ownership. When I had something to say about the direction of our organization, when I had a vote on kind of which direction we went, even though everything didn't go my way, I was at the table and my ideas were heard and some were actually utilized. Now I become an owner, not a renter. I become one that now I believe in this. You don't have to worry about me owning it because I was a part of it. I become one who trusts my leadership. When I trust my leadership to include me and to value me and to care about me, guess what? I'm an owner. Owners work harder. Owners don't get paid by the hour. Owners get to do the job. Whatever it is at whatever level, you got to show up and you got to get it done. That's what you get to do as an owner. So when we look at this as a team situation, understand that teams that actively engage in critical thinking, they achieve project outcomes that are 5 to 15% superior to those that do not, says McKinsey. So when you look at this, it's about superiority. So now it's not just getting it done. It's not just getting an outcome. It's getting a better outcome. I grew up in the country, and so I have a lot of country euphemisms that we like to use, but everyone knows this one. You cut once and you measure 5 times, or you measure 5 times. You measure twice and you cut once. Because you can't uncut a cut, right? So the critical thinking is take the time, get the measurements, look at it, picture it, draw on the 2x4 before you cut the 2x4. Hold it in place, see what it looks. Does it fit? Go back, think about it. How many times have you seen someone try to cut a corner? Come on, all my carpenters, my cabinet makers, you know who you are. You know how you try to bite or cut in the corner and cut it backwards, and it doesn't work. The angles, the 45s just don't match up. See, you have to take time to be critical in your thinking to get a superior outcome. And I learned this, and I'm no carpenter, but you wonder why would you use that? Well, been fortunate to build a couple of houses in my lifetime. And by that meaning I hired someone to build a house. And what I learned was there's this stuff called MDF, and it's manufactured wood is what it is. And so what happens is they don't worry about cutting it really crisp when they work with manufactured wood, because what they can do is they can put wood fill on it because it's made to be painted. Well, in this particular house, I wanted some 5-inch crown molding, decorative, that was solid wood with a wood grain, which meant it would be stained. Well, you can't fix a stain cut with wood fill. It won't look right. So they wasted a lot of wood. I'm gonna tell you, they wasted a lot of wood because the carpenter didn't measure once and measure twice and cut once. They just cut because they thought they had it figured out and thought it would go. And they used techniques that you wouldn't use. You wouldn't butt up 2 pieces of wood together in the middle of a wall to make it look good. But they tried to do that, but they couldn't fix it, right? So they had to go back and do a proper cut, which they should have done in the first place. I'm telling you that when you think, you win. My father, we had a landscaping business when I was a boy, maybe why I'm an entrepreneur today. It's called Four Chambers Enterprises. What my dad would do is he'd say, son, never walk to a destination on a job 3 times to get 3 different things. Before you go, he'd say, think about what you're going to need when you get there and get it on the way. Seems simple, right? But now if I have to make 2 trips to go back to where I just left to get something I could have gotten the first time, had I only thought about it before, it just drives me nuts. Critical thinking changes everything in your business. I told you, education costs. No matter how you get it, it's going to cost you. I'd rather pay the cheaper price that comes from thinking first and then acting than acting inappropriately and then having to redo. So I want you to do that. If I could just stress one thing, critical thinking, it makes leadership effective. I want you to cultivate this skill in yourself. You can't give it to your team. You can't expect it from your team if you don't do it yourself. I need you to become a critical thinker. Critical thinkers are great leaders and lead superior organizations because they get superior outcomes. I recently had a discussion with a gentleman who leads an organization that's very, very successful, has a 3 or 4 pronged approach to reaching the culture that he wants to reach. Great, great conversation. And it's applauded in the success the organization is seeing. And when I asked him, well, so what are you talking to me for? He said, I'm looking to make sure that I fill every gap. He's considering how can we get better. As a leader, never get satisfied. As a leader, make the next shot better than the last shot. Make your next statement better than your last statement. Make your next episode better than your last episode. Keep thinking, how can I get better? How can I be more efficient? And when you do that, it's a byproduct. Don't have time to get into it today. But when you do that, you will find more time for you to do things that are fulfilling to you. You have been listening to Speaking with One Voice with your host, Coach Rodney Payne. So glad you're here. I'd love to see what we could do for your team here at One Voice Leadership. How about you find us at RodneyRPayne.com. Find us on social media. DM us at Rodney R. Payne. Make sure you reach out to us. We'd love to hang out with you and see how we can help you in your organization become critical thinkers and grow in that way, among other things. Don't forget, Live to Lead, October 19th, 2026, right here in Oklahoma City. You can get your tickets, RodneyRPayne.com/live2-OKC-2026. We want to see you in the building, knowing that today is the cheapest the price is ever going to be. Go get your tickets, bring your team, get a table. We need sponsors as well. Well, as always, my pleasure to add value to you and your team. Thank you for staying in the room. Thank you for being in the room. And be sure to come back next week. I've got another one of the 5 on this focus thing. I got another one to go. So love it. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. My name is Rodney Payne. I am your host, the coach. Until next time, my friends, let's keep growing together.
You've been listening to Speaking with One Voice. Please remember to follow Rodney Payne on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Rodney R. Payne. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback, so please feel free to leave us comments. And if you would, rate and subscribe to the podcast, we'd appreciate that as well. Don't forget to set up for notifications so you can get the latest updates and social media posts and get new podcasts when they're released. As always, use the hashtag Speaking with One Voice or simply SWOV on any of your social media posts. On behalf of Rodney Payne, thanks again for listening.